The sun glinted off her sunglasses as she turned toward me, catching me mid-stare. "Enjoying the view?" she asked with a hint of amusement in her voice. In that moment, I could have lied or stammered an excuse. Instead, I told her the truth, a truth I hadn't spoken aloud in the 3 years since becoming a widower and single father. What happened next would transform both our lives in ways neither of us could have imagined. I never expected to find my CEO lounging by the pool at the company retreat. Victoria Chen, the formidable woman who ran Horizon Technologies with military precision, was stretched out on a chaise lounge wearing a modest black swimsuit, her usually perfect hair loose around her shoulders. I'd only come down to the hotel pool area to find a quiet spot to call my daughter, Emma. At 7 years old, she was spending the weekend with my parents while I attended this mandatory team-building event. It was our first night apart since her mother died, and the separation anxiety was hitting us both hard. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" Emma had asked, her voice small and uncertain through the phone. "Tomorrow afternoon, sweetheart." "Just one more sleep," I'd reassured her, trying to keep my own emotions in check. "Are you having fun with Grandma and Grandpa?" "I guess," she'd said, unconvinced. "Grandma made spaghetti, but it wasn't as good as yours." After promising to call again before her bedtime, I'd ended the call and stood there for a moment, staring out at the water, lost in thought. That's when I noticed Ms. Chen, Victoria, just a few yards away. I hadn't meant to stare, but the shock of seeing the always composed CEO so relaxed had momentarily frozen me in place. When she caught me looking and asked if I was enjoying the view, I could have easily mumbled an apology and walked away. Instead, exhaustion and honesty conspired against my better judgment. "Actually, I was thinking about how different you look," I said. "More human, I guess." "It's nice." She raised an eyebrow above her sunglasses. "Human? As opposed to what, exactly, Mr. Reeves?" "As opposed to the CEO robot who terrifies half the engineering department," I replied, immediately regretting my candor. "I'm sorry, that was inappropriate." To my surprise, she laughed, a genuine laugh that transformed her face. "Please, sit down," she said, gesturing to the empty chair beside her. "And call me Victoria. We're not in the office now." I hesitated but took the seat. "Then I'm Daniel, not Mr. Reeves or that guy from IT who fixed the server crash last month." "Fair enough, Daniel." She removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes that were a startling shade of amber. "So, was that your daughter on the phone?" I nodded, surprised she knew about Emma. "How did you?" "I make it my business to know about my employees," she said simply. "Especially the ones who solve major technical crises while simultaneously raising children alone." The directness of her acknowledgement caught me off guard. Most people either avoided mentioning my widower status or drowned me in pity. Victoria did neither. "It's our first night apart since her mom died," I admitted. 3 years, and we've never spent a night away from each other. I'm not sure which of us is more anxious about it." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "My father was a single parent too," she said finally. "After my mother left when I was 4. He never remarried, never even dated that I knew of. His whole life became about making sure I had everything I needed." "That sounds familiar," I said with a rueful smile. "Emma's my whole world now." "And your work," Victoria pointed out. "You've been with Horizon for what, 5 years? Your performance reviews are consistently excellent." I shrugged. "The work keeps my mind occupied. And the health insurance is good." "Pragmatic," she nodded. "I respect that." We fell into a surprisingly comfortable conversation. Victoria asked thoughtful questions about Emma, about how we were coping, about our daily routines. I found myself telling her things I rarely shared with anyone, how I still sometimes set the table for 3 before catching myself, how Emma had started sleeping with her mother's old sweater, how I'd taught myself to braid hair by watching YouTube tutorials. "You're doing an incredible job," Victoria said quietly when I finished. Many people would have crumbled under that pressure. "I've had my moments," I admitted. "But Emma deserves my best effort." Victoria looked at me for a long moment. "You know, Daniel, I've built my career on being observant. And I've noticed something about you." "What's that?" "You never ask for help. Not with work projects, not with personal matters. You just handle everything." I shifted uncomfortably. "Isn't that what I'm supposed to do?" "No one can handle everything alone indefinitely," she said. "Trust me, I've tried." There was something in her voice that made me look at her more closely. Behind the confidence and poise, I glimpsed a familiar loneliness. "Is that why you're sitting alone by the pool instead of networking with the executives?" I asked. She smiled slightly. "Perceptive. Yes, sometimes I need a break from being CEO Victoria. It gets exhausting, always being the one with all the answers, never showing weakness." "I can imagine," I said, though in truth, I couldn't. My challenges were different from hers, but I recognized the isolation in her eyes. "Actually, you probably can," she said, surprising me again. "Single parent, sole provider, always having to be strong for someone else. We're not so different, you and I." The comparison startled me. I'd always seen Victoria Chen as existing in a different stratosphere, untouchable, invulnerable. The idea that she might understand my struggles, might even share some of them, had never occurred to me. "I should let you get back to your relaxation," I said, suddenly aware that I'd been monopolizing her time. "Thank you for the conversation." "Daniel," she called as I stood to leave. "There's a new family-friendly policy package I've been considering implementing. Flexible hours, expanded parental leave, emergency childcare services. I'd value your input on it, as someone who could benefit from such policies." "I'd be happy to help," I said, genuinely surprised by the request. "Good. We'll talk more when we're back at the office." She slipped her sunglasses back on. "And Daniel? Call your daughter again. Tell her that her dad is doing important work, but he misses her very much." I nodded, touched by her understanding. "I will. Thank you, Victoria." As I walked away, I couldn't help but feel that something significant had shifted between us. What had begun as an awkward encounter had somehow transformed into a moment of genuine connection. I couldn't have known then how that poolside conversation would change everything, for me, for Emma, and for Victoria herself. The Monday after the retreat, I expected things to return to normal. Victoria would go back to being the intimidating CEO, and I would return to my role as an anonymous IT manager. But when I arrived at my desk, there was an email from her executive assistant requesting my presence at a meeting that afternoon. The subject line read, "Family Policy Initiative, Initial Discussion." She'd actually meant it. I was both flattered and nervous. My experience with upper management was limited to crisis situations and performance reviews. The idea of contributing to company policy was entirely new territory. When I entered the conference room that afternoon, I was surprised to find only Victoria there, surrounded by stacks of papers and an open laptop. "Daniel, thank you for coming," she said, gesturing to the chair beside her rather than across the table. "I hope you don't mind that it's just us for this initial discussion. I wanted to get your unfiltered thoughts before bringing in HR and legal." "Of course," I said, taking the offered seat. "Though I should warn you, I don't have any expertise in corporate policy." "What you have is more valuable, lived experience," she replied. "Now, let me show you what I've been considering." For the next hour, Victoria walked me through her vision for a comprehensive family support program. It went far beyond the standard parental leave policies I'd seen at other companies. There were provisions for flexible scheduling, remote work options, emergency childcare services, and even a proposal for an on-site daycare facility. "This is incredible," I said when she finished. But also expensive. Will the board approve something this extensive? Victoria smiled. Let me worry about the board. What I need from you is honesty. Would these changes make a meaningful difference for someone in your situation? What's missing? What's unnecessary? I took a deep breath and began sharing my perspective, the daily challenges of balancing work and single parenthood, the constant fear of Emma getting sick on an important workday, the guilt of missing school events, the exhaustion of handling everything alone. Victoria listened intently, taking notes and asking thoughtful questions. She seemed genuinely invested in understanding the realities of my situation. What about a parent network? I suggested tentatively. Some kind of support group or resource-sharing system for employees with children? Sometimes the most helpful thing is just knowing you're not alone. That's excellent, Victoria said, adding it to her notes. A community component is exactly what this needs. As our meeting concluded, Victoria thanked me for my candor. This is just the beginning, Daniel. I'd like you to be part of the committee that develops these policies further. Your perspective is invaluable. I was stunned by the offer. I'd be honored, but are you sure? This seems like something for HR or the executive team. This initiative needs someone who understands its importance on a personal level, she said firmly. Someone who will advocate for what families truly need, not just what looks good on paper. As I left her office, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride at being valued for my insights. Hope that these changes might make life easier for families like mine. And something else I couldn't quite name, a warmth that had nothing to do with corporate policies and everything to do with the way Victoria had listened to me, had seen me as more than just an employee. That evening, as Emma and I sat at dinner, she noticed my distraction. "What are you thinking about, Daddy?" she asked, pushing her broccoli around her plate. "I had an interesting day at work," I told her. "I might be helping to make some changes that could help families like ours." "What kind of changes?" I thought about how to explain it to a 7-year-old. "Well, maybe a place where you could come after school sometimes, instead of going to Mrs. Peterson's. And maybe I could work from home more often." Emma's eyes lit up. "So we could have more time together?" "That's the idea, sweetheart." "Is your boss nice?" she asked unexpectedly. The question made me smile. "You know what? She is. She's different than I thought." "Is she pretty?" Emma asked with the directness only children possess. The question caught me off guard. Yes, I suppose she is." Emma nodded sagely. "You should invite her for dinner sometime. I'm a good helper in the kitchen now." I laughed and changed the subject, but Emma's suggestion lingered in my mind. The idea was absurd, of course. Victoria Chen was my CEO, not a friend or potential dinner guest. Yet I couldn't deny that our interactions had taken on a different quality since that day by the pool. Over the next few weeks, I found myself working closely with Victoria on the family policy initiative. What had begun as occasional meetings evolved into regular working sessions. Sometimes we met in her office, sometimes in the company cafeteria over lunch. Once, when we were working late, she ordered takeout for us both, and we ate at the conference table while discussing the finer points of the emergency childcare proposal. I learned that Victoria was brilliant but practical, demanding but fair. She had a dry sense of humor that emerged when she was relaxed, and a genuine passion for creating a company where people could thrive both professionally and personally. My father would have benefited from policies like these, she told me one evening as we were wrapping up. He was an engineer at a manufacturing firm. Brilliant man, but his career stalled because he couldn't put in the expected overtime or travel. He sacrificed so much for me. "He sounds like a good father," I said. "The best," she agreed with a soft smile. "He passed away 5 years ago. Sometimes I wonder if he'd be proud of what I've accomplished." "I can't imagine he wouldn't be," I said honestly. She looked at me for a long moment. Thank you, Daniel. That means more than you know. As we gathered our papers, Victoria hesitated. I have tickets to the Children's Science Museum this weekend, she said casually. A corporate sponsorship thing. I was planning to donate them, but do you think Emma might enjoy it? The offer took me by surprise. She would love it. She's been begging to go since her class took a field trip there last month. Then they're yours, Victoria said, handing me an envelope from her desk. There are 4 tickets. Perhaps you could invite another family to join you. I looked at the envelope, then back at her. Something prompted me to say, actually, would you like to join us? Emma's been curious about the person I've been working with so much lately. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. It was inappropriate, crossing a line between professional and personal that shouldn't be crossed. But Victoria's expression softened. I'd like that very much, Daniel. If you're sure it wouldn't be awkward. Emma specifically suggested I invite you to dinner, I admitted with a small laugh. She'd be thrilled. And so, against all professional protocols and social expectations, I found myself making plans to spend Saturday with my daughter and my CEO at the Science Museum. Emma was beside herself with excitement on Saturday morning, both about the Science Museum and meeting Daddy's boss lady. Is she going to fire you if I'm not on my best behavior? She asked as I helped her pick out an outfit. No, sweetheart, I laughed. This isn't about work. Victoria is just a friend who wanted to join us today. Emma gave me a look that was eerily reminiscent of her mother. You're nervous, she observed. A little, I admitted. It's an unusual situation. Don't worry, Daddy, she said, patting my hand. I'll be extra good and use my best manners. We arranged to meet Victoria at the museum entrance. I spotted her immediately. She was wearing jeans and a casual sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, so different from her office appearance that I almost didn't recognize her. Emma, suddenly shy, partially hid behind me as we approached. You must be Emma, Victoria said, crouching down to my daughter's eye level. Your dad has told me so much about you. I'm Victoria. Emma studied her carefully before emerging from behind me. My daddy says you're very smart and that you're helping make things better for families. Victoria glanced up at me, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Did he now? Well, your daddy is helping me with that. He's very smart too. I know, Emma said matter-of-factly. He can fix anything. Computers and toasters and broken hearts. An awkward silence followed this pronouncement. Victoria stood up, her eyes meeting mine with a question in them. Emma believes I fixed our broken hearts after her mom died, I explained quietly. It's something I told her when she was having a particularly rough day, that hearts can break, but they can also heal. Victoria's expression softened. That's very wise, she said. Your daddy is right about that. The moment was interrupted by Emma tugging at both our hands. Can we go see the bubble room first? Please. And just like that, we were off. The day unfolded in a blur of interactive exhibits, scientific demonstrations, and Emma's endless questions. Victoria, to my surprise, was wonderful with her, patient, engaged, and genuinely interested in Emma's observations and ideas. At the physics exhibit, Victoria helped Emma understand the principles of leverage by explaining them in terms of playground seesaws. In the space gallery, she told Emma about meeting a real astronaut at a conference and answered her questions about whether aliens might exist. What do you think? Victoria had asked Emma seriously. I think the universe is too big for us to be all alone, Emma had replied. That would be sad. I agree, Victoria had said, and the look she'd given me over Emma's head had contained something I couldn't quite decipher. By lunchtime, Emma had completely warmed up to Victoria, chattering away about school and her friends and the book she was reading. Victoria listened attentively, asking questions that showed she was truly listening, not just humoring a child. As Emma finished her lunch, she announced she needed to use the restroom. "I'll take her," Victoria offered, surprising me. "If that's okay with both of you." Emma. As Emma nodded and took Victoria's hand, I watched them walk away, struck by how natural they looked together. Something warm and unexpected unfurled in my chest, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. When they returned, Emma was giggling about something Victoria had said. The rest of our afternoon passed in a whirlwind of discovery and laughter. At the robotics exhibit, Victoria revealed an unexpected playful side, challenging Emma to a robot building competition that had us all laughing at the ridiculous results. "You're nothing like I thought you'd be," I told Victoria quietly as we watched Emma interact with a virtual reality display. "Is that good or bad?" she asked, her eyes still on Emma. "Definitely good," I admitted. "Emma adores you already." Victoria's expression softened. "She's an extraordinary child, Daniel. You've done an amazing job with her." As the day drew to a close, Emma's energy finally began to wane. As we headed toward the exit, she slipped her small hand into Victoria's, reaching for mine with her other hand so that we formed a chain. "This was the best day ever," Emma declared sleepily. "Can Victoria come over for dinner sometime, Daddy? I want to show her my rock collection." I glanced at Victoria, expecting her to politely deflect, but instead she smiled. "I'd like that very much, Emma, if your dad doesn't mind." Outside the museum, as we prepared to part ways, Emma surprised us both by giving Victoria a fierce hug. "Thank you for coming with us," she said. "You made Daddy smile more than usual." Victoria's eyes met mine over Emma's head, and something unspoken passed between us, a recognition, perhaps, of how unexpected this connection was, and how welcome. "Would you like to join us for dinner tonight?" I found myself asking. "Nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread. Emma's favorite." Victoria hesitated only briefly. "I'd love to." That evening marked the beginning of a gradual transformation in our lives. Victoria began joining us for dinner occasionally, then regularly. Emma adored her, and Victoria seemed equally enchanted by my daughter, bringing her books about famous women scientists and listening patiently to her elaborate stories about her stuffed animals. At work, we maintained professional boundaries, but our shared project brought us into frequent contact. The Family Policy Initiative was gaining momentum, with support from employees across departments and cautious interest from the board. 3 months after our museum trip, Victoria and I were working late at my dining table after Emma had gone to bed. The policy proposal was nearly complete, and we were finalizing the presentation for the board meeting. "Do you think they'll approve it?" I asked, rubbing my tired eyes. Victoria closed her laptop. "They'll approve it because it makes business sense. Lower turnover, higher employee satisfaction, better recruitment potential. But more importantly, it's the right thing to do." She looked around my modest living room, taking in the family photos, Emma's artwork on the refrigerator, the evidence of our simple but happy life. "Being here, seeing how you and Emma live, it's changed my perspective," she admitted. "I've always approached business decisions logically, focusing on metrics and outcomes. But this is about people's lives, their families, their happiness." "You've changed my perspective too," I told her. "I've spent 3 years just trying to keep my head above water, focused entirely on Emma and survival. You've reminded me there's more to life." Victoria's eyes met mine, and the air between us seemed to shift. "Daniel," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." My heart quickened. "What is it?" "I've never met anyone like you," she said. "Someone who carries so much responsibility with such grace, who cares so deeply, who makes me laugh and challenges me to be better." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Victoria." "Let me finish," she said gently. "I know this is complicated. I'm your CEO. There are professional considerations, ethical questions. But I can't deny what I'm feeling anymore. And what are you feeling? I asked, hardly daring to breathe. That I'm falling in love with you, she said simply. With you and with Emma. And it terrifies me because I've never wanted a family before, never thought I could balance that with my career. But being with you both makes me want to try. The words I'd been holding back for months finally broke free. I love you too, I said. And Emma adores you. But you're right, it's complicated. Victoria squeezed my hand. I've been thinking about that. The family policy will be implemented regardless of what happens between us. That was never about you specifically, it was about all our employees with families. But my position as CEO does create a conflict. What are you saying? I asked, suddenly worried she was pulling away. I'm saying we have options, she replied. I could recuse myself from any decisions involving your department. You could transfer to another division. Or, I prompted when she hesitated. Or I could step down as CEO and take the position of Chief Innovation Officer that the board has been trying to create. It would mean focusing on what I love most, developing new ideas and strategies, while removing the direct authority issue. I stared at her in shock. You'd consider changing your role? For us? Victoria smiled. For us, yes. But also for me. I've been CEO for 7 years, Daniel. It's rewarding but exhausting. The idea of focusing on innovation while having more time for a personal life is actually appealing. I don't want you to sacrifice your career, I said firmly. It's not a sacrifice if it's what I want, she replied. But we don't have to decide anything tonight. We can take our time, figure out what works best for all of us. I leaned across the table and kissed her then, a gentle kiss full of promise and possibility. Daddy? Emma's sleepy voice came from the hallway. We broke apart to find her standing there in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. I had a bad dream. Victoria started to stand, probably thinking she should leave, but I caught her hand. It's okay, I said to both of them. I went to Emma and picked her up. Victoria's still here, sweetheart. We were just finishing some work. Emma looked over at Victoria, then back at me. With a child's intuition, she asked, Is Victoria going to be part of our family now? I glanced at Victoria, whose eyes were bright with emotion. Would you like that, Emma? I asked carefully. Emma nodded solemnly. She makes you happy, Daddy. And she knows about space and robots and she doesn't mind when I talk a lot. Victoria came over to us, her eyes meeting mine before she addressed Emma. I would love to be part of your family, Emma. But that's something your dad and I need to figure out together, and we'd need your help too. It might take some time. That's okay, Emma said with the simple acceptance of childhood. Good things are worth waiting for. That's what Daddy always says. The journey wasn't simple or straightforward. There were complications at work, raised eyebrows, and difficult conversations with the board. Victoria did eventually transition to the Chief Innovation Officer role, though not immediately. We moved carefully, respecting professional boundaries while nurturing our personal relationship. Emma had questions and occasional moments of confusion or jealousy, but her natural resilience and the genuine bond she'd formed with Victoria helped us navigate those challenges. A year after that night at my dining table, Victoria moved in with us. 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony with Emma as our flower girl and ring bearer combined. The family-friendly policies that had brought us together were implemented across the company, creating positive changes for dozens of families. What had begun as a chance encounter by a hotel pool had rippled outward, touching more lives than we could have imagined. On our first anniversary, Victoria and I returned to that same hotel. As we sat by the pool, I couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed. If you hadn't caught me staring that day, I said, if I hadn't been honest about what I was thinking. Victoria took my hand. But you were honest. That's what changed everything, your willingness to be vulnerable, to speak your truth even when it was risky. And your willingness to listen, I added. To see me as more than just an employee. She smiled, the same smile that had first revealed the woman behind the CEO facade. We saw each other, she said simply. In a world where people rarely truly see one another, that's the rarest gift of all. As the sun set over the water, I thought about the unexpected journey that had brought us here, from a widower struggling to raise his daughter alone and a CEO isolated by her position, to a family bound by love and choice rather than just circumstance. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest moments of honesty. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to answer a question truthfully when it would be easier to look away. Enjoying the view, she had asked that day. And my honest answer had changed everything. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories about unexpected connections and second chances. Remember that sometimes the most life-changing moments come from simply speaking your truth. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know about a time when honesty opened a door you never expected.